Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Terry Gilliam's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas from 1998. So yes, here we are back again, this time to discuss a Terry Gilliam film. So that's exciting, I feel, in itself. And yes, what a film, what a unique film this is. I watched it for the first time, a few days ago now. It was Friday night. So yes, I've been meaning to see this film for a number of years, and yes. Of course, Terry being one of the members, of Monty Python, this is always, I aim eventually to explore all of Monty Python's, all of their works, and of course, individually, for example, Terry Gilliam being the kind of most prolific, individual in terms of, making films, directing films, so yes, of course, he did go off to make a number of films, very, very famous, respected films, others, not too successful. This one in particular as well. It didn't do too well at the box office, but his films like Brazil, and then 12 Monkeys, very, very, talks about works, The Fisher King, all these ones. But they are divisive at times, and I can't comment on a lot of these films because I haven't seen them yet. But I personally find Terry to be a very fascinating individual. Of course, just separating him from his Monty Python work, perhaps just as an individual and his work. I've seen 12 Monkeys, of course, and a number of years ago, and I want to actually rewatch that very, very soon. Maybe this week, actually. I might have it behind me, of course. And yes, I loved that film. That is something else, and I think. I've not seen a number of his films, but I certainly look forward to this kind of endeavour, and I do plan on reviewing all of these films on the channel. So this one, is very unique, and I won't be giving a spoilers review here. So if you haven't seen the film, of course, you don't need to worry about me giving away kind of specific details. I can't really give it a kind of in-depth review, perhaps, on this anyway. Certainly not on a first watch. So it's nice to just give a basic kind of outline of my thoughts of the film, and my general kind of feelings that I got from this, and my experience. It is an experience film. It's not really a film that has kind of, it's not plot driven. It's more and it's at times it's not really character driven as much as I thought it would be. But it's unique. It's very interesting, and it's definitely it kind of a haunting film at times, and other times very, very funny, very comedic, and just very bizarre, very kind of yes, very unique, very maddening perhaps, and just I think it definitely bizarre. I definitely think it kind of reflects Terry Gilliam, definitely much so. It's very much Terry Gilliam film, and it's a very interesting one. Setting it's 1971, and of course it's mainly following these two characters. Duke, played of course by Johnny Depp, another kind of draw of this film. Big Johnny Depp fan, and also Benicio Toro. I really am a big fan of him, and he plays Dr. Gonzo, the lawyer, of course, of Duke, and these two characters mainly travelling together, and of course the initial kind of drive of the film, and this is really all you get in terms of the first sort of 20 minutes or so. Is the main parts of the film that you can kind of follow in the conventional sense, just in my opinion, and then it kind of veers off into this whole all-out kind of drug trip film, one that kind of, it's very, of course, psychedelic. It's a psychedelic road trip film, although at times it's not, and it's very, it goes into different different places later on in the second half, and it changes structure very very often. It's a very, very bizarre film. It's definitely not a typical film. Very, very very unique, very bizarre, I feel, and I did like this film. I must say, I'm definitely on the positive side. I think it's very unique. I had a very at times it was very, very funny. I did enjoy the different character moments, but I did love the soundtrack, of course, and just the kind of setting, of course, and the whole, the unique experience that it was. But at the same time, there is definitely things about this that are kind of a little bit underwhelming, in my opinion, and I think it really it's a very meandering film. I feel just based on first watch, of course, that is, it's very meandering, and of course that's maybe the point. But it's still appealing to me. It didn't really kind of do it for me at times. It kind of didn't quite keep me invested perhaps in different elements of this narrative. It's really very random at times, and I guess once again is kind of the intention to be more of an experience, very abstract, over perhaps a narrative that you kind of you get behind in a particular way with these characters. Of course, Johnny Depp does remain enjoyable in the film throughout, but I think Gonzo is a character who I kind of struggled to know what I felt about this character. Benicio del Toro, of course, gives a really good performance as always. Really, he's a great actor in my opinion. I don't think he gets enough credit, but I think his performance was very good in this. But the character, I wasn't. I enjoyed the character in the sense of it's entertaining and bizarre and funny, but at the same time, I never really got perhaps behind this character at all. And it's also different moments as the film goes on that I think were a bit too far in the character traits and what was going on there. Just kind of I didn't enjoy it as much as the film went on, and I think that's the thing about this film. It's definitely very meandering. It's very it's on edge at times. Other times it's very just dreamlike, and you've got these different really beautiful moments. I feel, but it's very much I wouldn't say tiresome, but I did slightly lose connection to simply watching this as a film, and not even in the sense of the characters, different story beats. I think just in terms of really just watching this film, I slightly just lost a connection at times to this, and it just kind of it was very I think it was a bit too meandering, maybe in a deliberate way, and I just didn't really get I got taken out of the experience basically in different moments, and I did come back again at times, and was there once again to kind of follow along, but then it kind of went off, and luckily in the end it does come together. It has a really good last kind of sequence, and I really love different moments there visually, but I think this film it's an okay film. I did like it, and it's pushing on into the kind of the good status, solid status, but it's just too inconsistent, and I think I did enjoy this quite a bit in different moments. I think the middle of the film is probably the best, and I think there's some real humanity to this film and stuff, but it's definitely very inconsistent, but in terms of this film starts off quite quite an outlandish way, and I think of course it does kind of remain at first fairly grounded. I feel, and of course they're sent or the assignment is from this magazine. Is for these two individuals. Duke, being a journalist, of course, he is assigned, to cover, this mint motorcycle race, and to, of course, get the coverage, and that's the basic, as I say, the drive to the film at first, but and it does remain kind of, I can kind of, follow along the different points, but after that, as I say, it does slightly veer off, and then of course it really goes off into this kind of all out psychedelic experience, and of course I think it kind of well, it definitely reminds me of Easy Rider, a film of course I've seen, I saw that a few years ago now, and it's very much like that film at times, really. That's one of the films I could compare it to, but again, very different. But road trip kind of elements, and the psychedelic, nature of it, and I think the way in which at times the characters are treated, although again very different, and it's very, it's just a unique film. I think the soundtrack, really is stunning, and I love the narration at times actually. Although I must say one of the other things about the film is the audio to this, to this film. So at times the narration, just when they're perhaps driving along, the music is blaring, even with different settings on my TV, I still kind of I struggled to hear at times exactly what was being said. I think it's just a bit too kind of maybe mumbling at times. The different kind of pieces, the wording here. I think it's very hard to kind of hear exactly what's being said at different moments. But mostly I did follow in that sense. But yeah, there is some moments, particularly when there's kind of different things going on, loud, happenings, of course, them driving along perhaps, or different pieces of music playing, where the narration, or just the dialogue, maybe it's slightly hard to kind of fully, kind of understand. That's one of the things there, but really, yeah, it's just an experience, this film. I wouldn't recommend, kind of this film to everyone. It's maybe not for everyone, although I'd say, if you want, check it out. You may love the film. You may really respond to this. You may not like the film at all. It seems it's very, very divisive. I like the film. I'm not a kind of massive fan of this. I didn't love the film, but I did find it very commendable, and I did enjoy it overall, no doubt. It's got some really, really hilarious moments. I think, especially early on, I really enjoyed the kind of the chemistry between Johnny Depp and of course Benicio del Toro. You've got many as well. Actors, very early on in their career. It's very interesting to see, of course, as well. Tobey Maguire, and yeah, it's very, very funny. Scenes with him, although he's not got a big part in this film. But yeah, you've got Gary Busey as well. Cameron Diaz is in this film, one of her earlier roles, of course. But yeah, you've got quite a few, big actors, in this film. But of course, it mainly focuses on Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro's characters. Yes, I think the kind of the warmth to the film is definitely, it's very commendable. This kind of relationship between these two characters. It's definitely enjoyable. I did, really. I found this very funny at times. Although, as the film went on, it's definitely maybe lacking in humour at times. I think the first half of the film is definitely more funny. Of course, it did kind of, as I say, it's very meandering at times, and of course it does kind of keep going with different things. So maybe it was it could have been more focused on different areas, and it could, remained in particular ways. But it, other times I think it's a bit slightly repetitive, as well. But I guess again that could be kind of an intention. But I found this film to kind of overall be an average work, very close to being into that good status, but I think it's just slightly under that. I think it's an okay film. It's one that I did enjoy. I found it very funny at times. I loved the soundtrack, the visuals as well. I think the way Terry shoots this film is definitely very, very interesting. It's very avant-garde, at times. Other times it's very much, very controlled in the way the camera moves, and I think, yes, it's kind of, real. It's definitely, it feels like a kind of a classic piece of filmmaking at times. Other times it's very, very experimental in a particular way. So it's kind of a weird mix in the way it kind of the end result kind of appears. But it is definitely very well shot for the most part. I think actually visually as well. There's some very interesting kind of metaphorical pieces here. There's definitely some interesting parallels which I won't get into because it could be kind of spoilers. But I think there's very, very interesting parallels in this film. I think the material here is very, very interesting. I think it's nice to see the way in which Terry kind of goes all out. Even though it's not, for me, a film that works all the time in that sense. I think it's commendable, to see the bold attitude, to the way he approaches this. I think he really went all out with this film, and I think that's commendable. I think at the same time, I think this film is very unfocused. It's very meandering. It's very it's definitely repetitive at times, and it lessened the kind of impact of this abstract feeling, because it was very much maybe a bit too much at times, and yes, as I say, it doesn't really kind of mesh the different kind of feelings at times, but it is overall an experience that I enjoyed. I found it very, very interesting, this film, and it's definitely very unique. I would recommend this to most people, really, just to see, just to see the film and see, kind of see what you think of it. You could really love this film. You could maybe not like the film so much, or at all. But that's just the way it is, of course. Everyone should see films for themselves. I think it's an okay film, slash good. But you could of course think very, very differently. It seems to have quite a cult following, and I can see why. It's very very interesting film, and very commendable film, with some greatness in there. In the way the film is shot, perhaps, and the different moments in the film, the kind of they do really compel me, but consistently, for the entire runtime, it very much it's a bit too random for me on this occasion. It's a bit too meandering, maybe sluggish at times, but that's just my personal experience of watching this film for the first time as well. So of course, I look forward to maybe sometime watching this again, and of course, knowing exactly what happens, and seeing it, of course, again, it's very different sometimes experience, but I think this is definitely worth checking out. I think it's definitely not the best work of Terry Gilliam, and it's just definitely not. It's not a film that I loved, but I did like it overall, and I would recommend it. So yes, my final score, my final rating for this film is a 69%, very close to being a good film, but I think it's just slightly under the mark there. It's a film that I enjoyed. I really enjoyed the film at times. I think there's definitely a real humanity to the film. I think as well, it's very much an abstract piece. Of course, people will respond to this very, very differently. It's very easy to see why it's divisive, and it could be something that some people really don't like. It seems like it has been, for many, many people. At the same time, it could be a film that you really love. So I would just say to go ahead and watch the film, see for yourself what you think, and of course, it'd be great to discuss, what you think of this film in the comments. It's a very, very interesting film. I found it to be very unique. Definitely had some moments that I did really, really like, loved maybe as well. Different moments in the film. I think the soundtrack as well is great stuff. I love the soundtrack. This is kind of music that I love throughout the entire film, and I love the kind of the White Rabbit, use as well. That song there. That different moment in the film I won't get into, but that's a really great moment actually, and I think it's a great soundtrack. Great. Visuals at times, but as a piece, as an overall film, I think the narrative, the focus on characters at times, and the balance between that and, the plot that is there, and just the kind of the tone of the film, and the investment, the connection I had to the film was very much up and down, very much. Meandering film, very random, at times too random for me on this occasion, but I think it's very haunting at times, and very funny as well, so it's an interesting film. It's very, very bizarre, and I think overall I did enjoy the film, but I didn't love the film, but I think it's very commendable, very unique, and I definitely I'm glad I saw this film, and of course, seeing a Terry Gilliam film is an event, and it's always a unique experience. So yes, I look forward to massively, checking out the rest of Terry Gilliam's work, and as well, just in general the Monty Python films, or works, of course, in general. I will be covering extensively on this channel, hopefully very, very soon. I think possibly the initial plan was to kind of review The Meaning of Life, and then go back to Holy Grail, and of course Life of Brian, but and different works as well. But I think I can't say exactly what I'll be doing. It could very much be remaining that kind of initial plan. I watched it again very, very recently. The Meaning of Life. I've seen it twice this year actually. So yes, of course, we'll just see what happens. We'll see how it plays out, and just to kind of regardless, give the kind of the treatment that I think it deserves. I love Monty Python. You know, I'm a big fan, and I will be covering you know, all three of them, you know, main feature films at least, you know, very soon, and eventually, you know, the entire works, you know, Monty Python, and of course all of the individual Pythons, you know, I definitely will be, you know, eventually. So yes, tell me your thoughts, you know, on Terry Gilliam's work, and of course this film. What do you think of this film? Have you seen this film? Of course. You know, what do you think of it? You know, what's your personal take? You know, what's your experience with this film? You know, how did you respond to this unique, abstract, you know, insane film at times, but you know, quite beautiful at times as well? And yeah, it's a very divisive film. So it'd be interesting to know what you think of it. And yes, as always, take care. And yes, thanks for watching.